So my name is Kevin Barwin. I'm currently founding partner of an HR consulting firm called Clarity Group. My career really didn't start in HR. So I have a math undergrad and an MBA. From there, I kind of got into the tech world. So I worked at a company called Corel, software that make WordPerfect, Corel Draw, and other software products, and stayed in tech for probably 20 years. Founded 2 tech companies along the way. Was CEO of about 3 of them, all relatively small. One we sold, one we shut down, and one we licensed to another company. I had an executive coach when I first became CEO of a company that I really liked working with, and when I was in my 7th or 8th, I forget now, tech company, I was traveling like crazy. I was probably on, I think the last year I traveled, I was on 256 airplanes, and decided that was enough. So I was talking to my coach at the time, and he said, why don't you come run my company? So I took over, became partner of a career coaching company for 4 years. Decided that it was time to move on and do something on my own. So myself and a partner started Clarity Group about 2.5 years ago. We're now national. We have offices across the country. We just won Best Ottawa New Business last year. We're about 35 people coast to coast, and really focus on leadership development, but not focusing on senior leaders. We really focus on kind of first-time managers to directors, kind of that middle section, as well as we have a whole section that deals with transition when companies are downsizing, so the outplacement side of the business. So that's my career. When it comes to the HRPA, so the Human Resource Professional Association is a provincial organization. There are 27 different chapters, so I happen to be president of the Ottawa chapter. That's one of the larger chapters. We have 1,600 members, made up of 20% students, 80% professionals. The HR profession, as of last year, has just become an accredited profession, like doctors, lawyers, engineers. So it's a self-directed. So when you get your certification, your CHRL or CHRP or CHRE, there's 3 different levels. You're an accredited professional, self-regulated, and so that means in order to keep that, you have to be a member of the association. You have to have so many hours of continuing education, so we're constantly, educating our members. And the Ottawa chapter really delivers programs within the Ottawa community and builds the Ottawa HR community and delivers as many programs as we can throughout the year to help our members learn, but also gain points to keep their accreditation. We also have a kind of an outreach into the universities where we try to bring and educate people on the HR profession. So the reality is no. I think it really depends by sector. Some sectors I think have a much higher percentage of females within kind of management and senior roles. Others have a very low percentage. I would say it probably varies from 14% in some sectors to as high as probably 40 or 50 in others. I've come from a world where I'm not sure male female made a difference. So I've always been in the tech world, and you always tried to hire the best person you could, regardless of gender. That said, I think in the tech world where I've come from, it's a high percentage of males because they're the ones that, in past, I think it's changing, did the computer science, engineering, more the technical backgrounds, and I think that's shifted over time. So if I look at, admissions into some of the major engineering schools, high percentage of females versus men. If you look at females entering into the universities in Canada, predominantly female now. It's made a huge switch over the last probably 10 years. So I think, over time that'll shift. Are we there yet? Not at all. Certainly in the HR profession, certainly in the private companies who run HR consulting firms, I think it's a high percentage. If you look at our membership within the HRPA, I would say, and I was going to run this number and I apologize I didn't, but I can get it to you, I would say 65 to 70% are women. I was just at the provincial conference, 4,000 people in a room. I would say at least 60-70% again were females. So it's a very female-dominated profession, but that's also changing. I think the HR profession has shifted from the days of when you were a personnel department that did payroll and that was about it, and HR is moving into a much more strategic role within organizations, and with that strategic I think that's going to change the percentage of female HR professionals at the senior management table as well. We're starting to see that. Universities are now offering HR degrees, and now that we're now a certified, accredited kind of profession like doctors and lawyers, that's giving some credibility, and we're seeing an increase in males getting into the industry, but that's changing. There was a study done 3 years ago, and I think it's still valid, that looked at, if you were a CEO of a company and you wanted to put in a senior HR professional as your chief human resource officer, most of them said it wouldn't be an HR person. They would find someone who was more strategic, and in most cases that was a male role that came out of finance or came out of business development, and traditionally have been males. Again, I think over time that's going to shift. My gut says it's not a mandate. I don't think you'll ever see a position posted that will says must be female. Like you won't see that. I think when it comes to the recruiting side, I think it's something they look out for. They look out for balance in the organization, but at the end of the day, it's the best person for the job, and I think they can help produce that. And I don't know if I'm jumping into the solution side or not, 'cause but I think it's really about cross-training existing staff and making sure there's a good representation when you're recruiting high potentials, and giving all people within the opportunity, male and female, that ability to take on leadership roles and cross-train within the organizations. And even when you're recruiting, really going out and searching for highly qualified males and females, so you've got an equal representation when you're bringing it to the hiring manager within the organization, that it's based on strength, not gender, and you want to have a good representation of both that you can present to the hiring manager. That really, gender shouldn't matter. It should be about experience, but I think it's the HR's role to make sure that that is a balanced. So as I said, I've come from a world of startup, and I'm not sure there's been any limitations. Most of if you look at the HRPA board, we have 9 people on the board, 7 are female, right? Highly, talented, amazing people on my board that do an amazing job. That's, I think, just a representation of the membership. So, all of our members, as I said, 60-70% are female. Therefore, my board has a similar representation as well. And certainly when we recruited for the board, it was based on talent. It was based on who could do the job. I've come from a world where, and I've grown up in a world where I've never really seen the difference between male and female. If I look at my own personal family situation, my mother did her Master's of Computer Science in 1965, which there were no females in that industry. And, the business savvy person in my family was my mother, not my father. So I've kind of grown up in this role reversal. So my lens that I've looked at, females have always been as capable, if not more capable in some things, to lead. If I look at my organization when we've recruited, we have no bias. I've got 34, people working for Clarity right now. I would say 30 of them are females, because we look for a certain skill. All our coaches are certified, great listeners, and I think we hire the best. And in that case, they happen to be female. In most cases, not male. So, have I seen bias? In my world, no, but I've never worked in government or big business, or I'm really a small sector. So I've never experienced, or I've certainly never implemented, or any sort of policies or anything around we must hire males or we must hire females versus males. It's really the best person for that particular role. I think in some organizations probably, in the ones that I've led, it hasn't been an issue. Right? Work-life balance, I think, is important. The organization I've built gives our staff complete flexibility to work as much as they want. So we've set up an organization that really is a virtual organization that allows them to work 1 day a week to 5 days a week. So they, regardless, I think, That said, I think more and more in Canada, males are taking paternity leave or sharing, and I think that's shifting. My kids are now university age; they're kind of your age. Back then, I don't think a lot of my colleagues, friends ever took paternity leave, and that's changing. So I'm not, I hope it's changing, but I'm sure it's true. I'm sure you're doing this report for a reason. I'm sure there are biases out there. I've been fortunate enough that I've never, experienced that in the companies that I've been associated with. I think it's a little bit what I was talking about before, is really making sure the candidate pool has a good mix and giving everybody, that ability to, if it's an internal candidate, how can you provide them with internal coaches to, build up their leadership skills, or give them, males and females, the ability to work in different departments and build up strengths to really make strong candidates, male or female. I think it's the opportunity. Really needs to be there for all people who are showing potential signs of leadership to really excel and develop those leadership skills throughout. So when you are about to promote, you've got strong candidates regardless of gender. I'm not one, I think, to put a certain you must hire female. I don't think there should be quotas personally. But I just think there has to be an opportunity for everybody to have equal access to any job posting that's out there, and really look at, when you recruit for those, really making sure, I think as HR professionals, knowing that there is a bias in some sectors, really to take that extra time to make sure the candidate pool is very strong, equally balanced in males and females, to give them both an equal opportunity to hire the best person for that role. I don't think there should be quotas. I read something last week that was quite interesting. So the Toronto Securities Commission, which is our stock exchange in Toronto, is looking at mandating public companies post or report on their female representation in senior management roles. And I thought that was a really good idea. That, not a quota, but just make it public. Mm-hmm. So when we look at organizations, we have a good idea of how they're represented. So I don't think government, again, should have equal access to training, equal access to building some of those skills, apprenticeship programs. So in my profession, I think I've always hired the best candidate. I talked a little bit about Clarity Group. My business partner is female, so our executive team is balanced 50-50. We both bring very different skills to the table, and we make a very, very good team. And when I look at hiring, I don't think I look at hiring based on gender. I think I hire the best candidate for the particular role we're looking for. As I said, in my company, we're 80-90% female. Just because of the profession we're in. If you look for professional coaches, there tends to be a female bias. A lot of females have gone into that profession, and they're excellent at what they do. And sometimes I wish we had more males. So the opposite effect, because I have candidates that sometimes work better with a male, especially senior males. So I'd like to actually hire more men in my company. So I'm the opposite of that. But I think it's always being aware. I think from an HRPA standpoint, we try to bring topical issues to the table and talk about some of those things at some of our meetings, and bring in speakers around bias and bring in speakers around those sorts of topics. So I think it's about education as well. So I personally try to bring that kind of content to our members. I also try to brand. One of the things I'm trying to do as HRPA president is really trying to build the profession to be a credible profession, and say HR professionals add value at the management table. And it's not just about payroll and benefits anymore. HR leaders are truly becoming strategic and truly understanding the business that they operate in. And if we build that brand, I think naturally, because there's a high percentage of females in the human resource profession, that's going to lead to higher percentage of females at the management table. So one of the things I'm doing is really trying to build the brand of the association as we're leaders in the business world, not just leaders in HR, but we can truly step up and be leaders in the HR community and beyond, and really try to get CEOs and boards to look at the skills an HR professional can bring, not just from, as I said, from true, typical HR functions, but from the strategy as well. And setting company strategy and how that relates to people, because people are 60, 70, 80% of most companies' payroll, and it's about building that team. And HR have a huge say and a huge role in that, and understanding the business needs relates to the people and what you need to recruit for, what skills you need to build within the organization. And I think if we can build that brand stronger, you'll see naturally a flow of HR professionals into more leadership roles, into chief operating officers, into CFOs at companies. So that's what I'm trying to do, is really kind of build the brand. But in my organization, there's no gender bias. It's just find the right people for the right clients.